Let me introduce you to object-oriented CSS. And in order to do so, we will first of all create a div. And in my opinion, object-oriented CSS is the most efficient way to write CSS code. And therefore, I really recommend everyone to use object-oriented CSS when it comes to writing CSS code. And object-oriented CSS just means that you separate structure and skin. So let me give you an example. Let's say we have the class of box, and that box has a width of 100 pixels and a height of 100 pixels. And that dot box notation is basically the structure of an element because it defines the structure, so height and width of an element. In our case, of a box. Now we could create a second structure, for example of circle, and now we can again use a width of 100 pixels and a height of 100 pixels and a border radius of 50%, for example. So we get a circle. And now that is again the structure because it defines the structure of a circle. So what if we want to use different colors, for example? We could, for example, create one class for dot yellow, if we want to say so, and that one will have a background color of yellow. Now we could create a second class for dot green, and that class will have a background color of green, for example. Now we're going to save our file, and if we want to create to this, for example, let's say our first div should have a class of box. Now we have a box, but we can't see anything because we don't have a color. So let's say we want to use yellow as the color, and we're going to save our file, and now we have a yellow box. And if I want to have a yellow circle now, for example, instead of a box, I can just replace box with circle. And as you can see, now I have a yellow circle. I can go ahead and for a second class, I can, for example, say I want to have a box, and a box should be green. And now I have a green box. I could also get a green circle though if I wanted to get so by just changing that one class. And as you can see, now if I want to have a box, I just have to change from circle to box. And if I want to have a different color, I just have to change the color. Otherwise, if I wanted to have one box here and then another box here, I would need two classes. But imagine I would want to have 10 circles and every circle has a different color. Now I would obviously have to copy this box 10 times basically and give every single box a different background color like this. So box 1 would have background color green, box 2 maybe blue. I mean, you get the idea. It's not like I have to type all of this out. But in our case, we just need those 4 classes, and I can say, okay, now here I probably have yellow again, here I could, for example, have blue, then I could have aqua, for example, and so on. And I could also create more classes. I don't just need to have a box and a circle. I could also have a rectangle. And now I can give that one a width of, for example, 200 pixels and a height of 100 pixels, if I want to say so. And then I can go ahead and maybe I can create a rectangle. And I think you understand that, especially when having a lot of possible combinations, and when you use colors, you usually have a lot of possible combinations, this style of writing CSS is very efficient. You could also create one class for center, for example. So whenever you want to have something centered, for example, you can just use that class and it would center basically an item. So if I want to have a circle center, for example, I can use center as a class right here. And now, whoops, control needs to be center. And now once I save, I have my item center basically. Now I could obviously also create a class for flex centered. And I could create one class for flex, whatever. I mean, you get the idea. You can create a lot of different classes, and each of these classes has a different purpose. And this obviously makes especially sense to basically separate structure from skin. And this is why I recommend everyone to use object-oriented CSS when writing CSS code, because it, first of all, in my opinion, looks a lot better and it makes everything a lot cleaner and easier.